Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name's Soleil and I garden in a Zone 5B in mid-Michigan, and I'm really excited to show you around the garden today because it is May and our temperatures just got much better than they have been, so everything is really thriving. And if you compare what's happening in the garden today to last week, it is absolutely amazing how much growth we have seen. So I can't wait to show you what's blooming, what's really just sprouting, and where we're at. All right, let's take a look. So today I thought we would start in the Woodland garden because I am absolutely amazed to see how many things are coming up. You can see in the front of this garden bed all of the golden tiara hostas are really pushing out right now, and you can see the blooms on my redbud are still going, and we also still have some blooms on tulips. Now tomorrow it's actually going to get into the 80s, so I think we're probably going to be losing some of the tulip blooms really soon, but right now I'm still enjoying their beautiful color in this garden. In addition, right now we have some of the blue moon phlox that I have planted throughout the garden starting to come up and bloom, and this is a beautiful perennial woodland phlox that only gets about 6 inches tall, sometimes maybe a little taller depending on where you plant it, but it is absolutely beautiful blue color. You can see that all of the heucheras are really starting to leaf out right now, and over in this corner we have the Mount Airy Fothergilla, and just look at all of the buds on this one. It is absolutely covered. So this is also nicknamed the bottle brush shrub, and so these look a lot like bottle brushes, or the brushes that you use to clean baby bottles. And so soon we are going to see some beautiful little white flowers on this, and you can see some of them starting right now. I do think that these pieris are not really happy, but I'm going to give them a little while. I'll probably give them at least until June to see if they perk up and get happy, but I've got one on each side here in this garden bed that don't seem to be doing that great, so we'll watch those and see if they perk up. All of the blooms are gone from the plum tree right now, but that's okay because now we get the magnificent deep dark foliage. That definitely offsets some of the brighter blooms of the tulip flowers, as well as the bright green that is that lovely new spring growth. And over here you'll see we have some blooms on our espalier apple tree, and they're all on the left side right now, and each one of the branches, this one, and this one, have different types of apples on them. So we don't have any blooms on this apple over here, but definitely some on the left side. So again, I really do need to get in here and get this honeysuckle bush that's back here cut down so that we can let a little bit more sunlight in for this beautiful tree. And you can see in this garden bed the golden euonymus is really bright right now, and it definitely goes really well with that autumn frost hosta that you see along the front edge. And then we have the curly fries hosta that is lining the very, very front edge of this border. Our mega caramel heucheras are such a soft, beautiful color, and even when you touch them, they are soft. In this beautiful garden area right now, we have the tulips along with the dicentra, which is also called bleeding heart, and the brunnera, and they just make a beautiful trio combination of blues, pinks, and that corally pink color. Isn't that just stunning? And then we also have a lovely combination over here going on with the tulips, the lamium and the heaven sent pulmonarium, which is a Jacob's ladder. So it is definitely starting to put out its blooms, and it's really lovely. And I like the fern leaf foliage that it has on it as well. That may be something that grows on this year, and if it does, I may be able to take some divisions this fall to spread it about the garden. especially if it is deer resistant. I may want to put that in my way back garden. Now here in the front of this garden bed right here, you can see that the heucheras are really starting to push out. And I think this one is called spearmint. I'm not actually positive, but that's definitely the color of it. And I've done some research and that's the closest I can come to it. I've had it in my garden for a really long time, and it's a non-branded plant, so it's hard to tell, but I think it's absolutely lovely. And then above that, the rhubarb. I had a lot of fun harvesting some of that. I boiled some of that and the stems and added some Splenda to it and created a nice simple syrup. I had a lovely drink including that mixed with gin, and it was absolutely delicious. It was just a recipe I found online. Back here you can see all of these hostas are really starting to fill in, and some of that Hakonikloa, all gold grass, is starting to grow up as well. And then we have more of the bleeding heart back here. And the dogwood leaves have gotten much bigger, and you can see we have buds all over this as well. So it'll be fun to see those open up. Now on the other side, we have this gorgeous glowing combination right now. I don't know if the light is doing it any justice compared to what I see with my eyes, but this is more of the blue moon phlox, and you can see this one is a little bit taller here because it gets just a little bit more shade, and so it's stretching towards the light a little bit more. And back behind it we have the Jack Frost Brunnera blooms, and then behind it we still have this amazing Pulmonaria blooming. I mean, it is just continued and continued and continued. And I'm absolutely loving the color of it. The blooms are just so nice and frilly, and they're pink and blue. Just gorgeous. Now we have the Catching Fire, which is a tiarella that's growing right here. So you can see how the center of it looks a little bit like it's catching fire. And it's a very bright pop of color here in the shade garden. And this beautiful Trillium, we have two glorious blooms on that, which is a native plant. And I'm so happy and just love having that there. And it's right next to a maidenhair fern. You can also start to see some of the Japanese painted ferns coming up along this garden bed here, amongst the heucheras. And then we have more of that blue moon phlox, and because this is more shaded, it hasn't quite opened yet. And we have some bleeding hearts along here, and more at the end as well. And this beautiful heucherella on the edge of the border is called Pink Fizz, and it is getting ready to put forth some of its beautiful pink blooms soon. So I'm looking forward to seeing those, because they really are gorgeous along with that minty green foliage. The bright pops of color are starting on the end of this garden bed with that golden Hakonikloa grass. And my, isn't the crimson on this Japanese maple looking amazing. This is one of the very fine leaf foliage types of Japanese maple. I believe this one was just called crimson. It was in a black pot, unbranded, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. So just looking back now a little bit at the garden and the scenery that provides back here is just wonderful. And this round garden bed, we're actually starting to see this tree leaf out here, and this is a witch hazel. This is the Jelena witch hazel, and its leaves are still that nice silvery soft foliage, and we're getting some beautiful new growth on this pieris. This is the Valley Rose pieris, and if you can see how the new foliage is red and then it turns back into that green. And we have some variegated Solomon seal in this garden bed that is just starting to put out its blooms. And this all happened today because I had not seen these little buds before, but they're starting. Aren't they dainty and beautiful? And then that's backed by the oak leaf hydrangea. And then behind it, those beautiful blue blooms that you see are another pulmonaria. Just gorgeous spring color. And my goodness, the hostas, you guys, these are some of the largest hostas that I have. We have a sum and substance hosta right here. And then I'm not actually sure what this one is. It could be like the humpback whale hosta. I'm not positive. It's only been planted there for a couple of years. We have a couple of them over here as well. They have a bit of a bluish hue to them, and they are absolutely gorgeous. So full. And I feel like because of the cool weather and all of the moisture we had this year, we got some good root growth before the heat has taken effect, and that I think has made it so that we get lots of lush foliage. Just more Jack Frost Brunnera along with a garden statue I just put into the garden today. And then we have another one that's kind of hidden back here in the tree, which is kind of like a tree sun forest face, which I think is just kind of fun. I like to have things, you know, that might not jump out at you right away, but every once in a while you'll find something and go, oh, look at that. Now we have a clematis that's growing along the fence right here. I do know that deer like clematis, so it is quite possible that this one will struggle here, but we're going to give it a go and see how it does. And along here we have some beautiful color, again with more pulmonaria happening, and the Scarlet O'Hara pieris right here with its beautiful new foliage. And this is the Spot On pulmonaria. So this has a much darker bloom than the Pretty in Pink or the what I would consider to be Twinkle Toes, but very gorgeous. And some more Bleeding Heart and some of the variegated hostas are now coming up. Now remember I told you I wanted to let these variegated hostas come up and kind of see what they look like along with the Penny's Pink hellebores here. And I do think that they're going to kind of overtake them. So I'm definitely going to need to come through and do a little bit of editing because I don't want that to happen. I do really want the hellebores to be able to have ample room to be able to continue to grow on and show their really beautiful leaves. And that hydrangea that we transplanted back here from basically a layering root cutting is doing great. So I think we'll actually get some blooms on that one this year. We have a giant hosta coming up right here. We have some large, what look like cigar hosta leaves happening. And I don't know, I'm not going to leave this boxwood here, but it's just sitting here for right now until I plant it. We have the hydrangea leafing out. But more importantly, we have this amazing view along this garden bed right here of this Twinkle Toes pulmonaria. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, I thought last week it was putting on a show, but look at it now. It's even more bountiful. Just gorgeous. And I did come through and, like I said, add a little garden sculpture. So here we have my little Zen Buddha sitting here calmly, enjoying her time in the garden. And we're starting to see the hydrangeas come through these supports that I bought. This one is definitely bigger than the other, but I think they are going to be a very good support for these hydrangeas. And this plum tree also is done blooming, but it has leaves that are also very nice and dark. These are the Thundercloud plums, and they were by Monrovia. And we're starting to see some of the daffodils go over in this garden bed, but then it's being taken over by some of the gorgeous purple blooms along the ground cover, which is the ajuga. And that is such a beautiful contrast to some of the other foliage that we have on the shrubs, like this amber jubilee. And you can really start to see some of the brightening up of this corner space with the variegated weigela, which is the rainbow sensation weigela, and we have one in the front and one in the back here. All right, let's take a quick look at this half moon garden that we have. And I think things are looking really good here. I did have to cut the hyacinths back because they went over. And I did do a little bit of dividing. So I have the white wands, Veronica, and it was just back over here before, and I divided into 3 pieces so that we could kind of carry on that theme over here until that hibiscus branches out. And those don't come up until much later on in the season, so don't be nervous if you don't see yours budding out yet. The same can be true for some roses of Sharon. This is the Althea Rose of Sharon shrub, and it is just starting to put out its leaf buds. But we're also getting some color now from the creeping phlox that is spotted throughout this garden bed. I don't know if you remember, we got some of those on clearance last year. They were like $2 a piece. And then we also have some Burgundy Glow Ajuga, and this one blooms a lighter lavender color. So if you like different types of ajuga, that one is a beautiful one, both for the color of its foliage as well as the color of its blooms. And we have some wonderful blooms on this blueberry bush, what's left of it that the rabbit didn't eat this winter. And you can see these privets are really bushing out. And this phlox, wow, it sure has covered this ground area really well, hasn't it? Isn't that gorgeous? Like a carpet of flowers. And all of the same things are happening on this side, but we also have the amazing El Camilla Mollis, or the lady's mantle, right here, which has pushed up about 2 inches now, and I'm expecting it to flower soon. The butterfly bushes that we ended up planting or replanting, kind of moving them in this garden bed, are looking really great, you guys. They have plenty of happiness going on, so I expect them to do really well. So that transplant definitely worked. Over here in the potager garden, we have quite a bit of new growth coming on. Our planters are doing really well, you guys. I'm super happy with the growth that they have put on. They're already starting to really fill out. And soon I think we'll be having blooms on the lobelia. So that's exciting. And we have lots of blooms on the strawberries that are in this garden bed. So I have covered them up with the cloches that were covering the tulips. Thankfully, the timing on that worked out pretty well. And the bees and the pollinators for them can actually continue to get into this and be able to pollinate them so that they can make berries. So that is not a problem. Hopefully I'll get more strawberries this year than the birds will get. That's the goal. Our lettuce is looking amazing. Just look at that row of yummy, luscious lettuce. That is a tongue twister right there. But it looks fantastic. We have some iceberg lettuce in there, we have some romaine lettuce in there, and we have some butter crunch lettuce in there. And at the front of this garden bed we have a clematis, and I'm blanking on its name right now, but it is a proven winners variety. It's a purple one, and it has these little bell-shaped type flowers. Very pretty. Our chard and parsley is doing really well over here. We have some carrots that are coming up, as well as some beets. And our peas are continuing to grow on as well. You can see over here though that the Virginia flowers have gone over, so I'll need to come through and do some deadheading in that garden bed. But the irises are getting ready to take over and bloom here very soon. And these will be a light lavender bloom. And as one viewer pointed out, they smell like grape soda. And now that's the only thing I can smell when they bloom, but they sure do smell wonderful. In this garden bed over here, things are coming up really well. The deutzia are a little bit further along with their buds. All of them are just starting to show some color. And we have the Pinky Winky hydrangea with more foliage on it as well. And the foxglove are starting to sprout up in here. I still have not planted the lady's head, but we will get to that soon, I promise. All the dianthus along the edge of this garden bed are also getting ready to bloom. You can see the spikes with the flower buds at the very top of them. And this is the one that I just recently showed you in the clearance haul video that I had, or the plant haul video. And what a beautiful weigela this is. And then this pink mint clematis has put on a lot of new growth, and we're seeing buds on quite a few clematis right now. Let's take a look at the long border before we go in the front yard. I'm going a little bit out of order today, but as we make our way over to the long border, I just wanted to show you some of the heuchera and succulents that we have growing along here, and some of the buds that we have on the chives that are getting ready to open, as well as some of these. These are upright clematis. This is called the Mongolian Bell's clematis. And believe it or not, the primrose are still blooming, and it's almost mid-May. What a wonderful thing. You can see the ajuga over here is also starting to put on a show. We are not there yet, but it is definitely starting to open up and break flower. That is going to be absolutely magnificent. And the buds that are on the salvia are also very, very beautiful. The pasque flower continues to open up further with more flowers, and it's surrounded by the incredible hydrangeas. And we have those geraniums back there. Those are the cranesbill geraniums, and those are going to bloom blue. I believe that's the Johnson's blue variety. And it just kind of creeps in and over in between the hydrangeas and everything, and it looks amazing. And the fountain garden is looking really great right now. We have an azalea that is getting ready to bloom, and boy, is that going to be a show as well. This one, unfortunately, doesn't last very long because it gets full sun, and it also gets a bit of drizzle from the fountain, but nevertheless, it is absolutely gorgeous. So this one lasts for about a week usually. So I'm glad I was able to at least show you today, depending on when we get to the next garden tour. We're waiting on a lot of flowers. I mean, it is about time that we're going to start getting some of the late spring, early summer bloomers. And this clematis that is back here on this trellis is putting on buds. We have this mock orange that is putting on buds. We have buds all over the Little Kim lilacs here. You can see one right here. So fun. This corner is starting to become much more illuminated with the addition of the new growth on the autumn frost hostas. So if you have a deep dark corner of the garden, I definitely recommend those for really lighting it up. Then we have the Diamond Lake hosta that's right back here. And as you can see, we talked about some of the sweet woodruff getting ready to bloom last garden tour, and they are starting to show those cute little white blooms. They're just so dainty, aren't they? The aronia here is the groundhog shrub, and this one is starting to bloom as well. And our hanging baskets have only been out for a few days, and they are starting to fill out and bloom. So exciting. All of our Japanese maples also just really have fleshed out their leaves in full. More clematis right here that are going to bloom. The hydrangea is getting better down here. I've dotted out throughout this garden bed some small snapdragons that are about 12 inches, and those are going to be a light pink, so I think that will be a beautiful foil against the deep dark foliage of this heuchera. That is the black pearl. And here in the fountain bed, the weigela is starting to leaf out, and beneath it we have some gorgeous, what is this? This is the Marvelous Marble heuchera, along with the plum pudding and the spearmint. So lots of different varieties in there as well. This clematis is the Étoile de Violet, and it has beautiful maroon blooms on it, almost purple, and it is very vigorous this year, so I expect we'll see lots of blooms. And all of these heuchera are almost covering the ground. Isn't that great? That always makes me so happy, because that's kind of my goal. I don't like to see the soil. I like to have it all covered and have just gorgeous plant material all throughout the garden beds. And here we are now, coming upon my opening day viburnum. And if you can see, we are getting so close to bloom, you guys. It is absolutely amazing the number of buds that are on this shrub. I'm going to try to get myself out of this camera view here. Here we go. That's a better view. Look at all of those blooms that are coming. It is amazing. I'm so thrilled. Right now they're like this dark limey color, and then they're going to turn white when they open. So exciting. And underneath them in the shade, not to be outdone, we have that beautiful Samurai Pulmonaria with some deep blue blooms in its silver foliage. And some more Marvelous Marble heuchera down here. Just kind of a tapestry of color in the long border that I really like to have. Bright colors, subdued colors. I like to mix things in and kind of, you know, just weave them together. Now this climbing rose looks much healthier this year than it did last year and has so much more growth. I'm hoping we get plenty of blooms on that as well. And you can see that the barberry is looking amazing down here, along with some of the sedum, and the chives that are all along here have blooms that are getting ready to open, or buds that are getting ready to open, you guys. And again, these tulips are just about done in this garden border. But they're still providing a lovely pop of color right now, and I think in a few more days they'll be done. All right, let's check out the front garden now. Oh wait, before we go, let me show you the honeysuckle and give you an update on that. So here is the beautiful honeysuckle that we planted, and I think it's doing really well so far in its spot, and it looks gorgeous. So I definitely, so far, am really happy with how vigorous this vine is. Can't wait to see it bloom. All right, now to the front yard. All right, so here we are looking at the side garden bed as we enter the front garden, and we have the hydrangea over here that is beginning to fill out really well. This geranium is going to need to be kind of edited a little bit. I'm going to have to pull some of that out because it's starting to creep into the path. We have some of that gorgeous blue moon phlox back here as well for some spring interest, and I just added that last year, so I'm thrilled to see how good it's doing here, because this has been a challenging planting area for me. It's a bit dry and it's kind of very sunny in the morning, but not at all in the afternoon. And look at the beautiful pink blooms, you guys, on this ice bog rosemary. If you haven't seen this plant before, it's very unique with its blue foliage and its cute little pink blooms. And I have seen this at Lowe's recently. We've got our eastern snowball bush with its giant buds on it. Look at those, starting to really become a flower. And then our royal ferns here. Oh, they're probably about 2.5 feet tall already. I mean, they just grew an extra foot this last week at least. Amazing. And all of our boxwoods are doing quite well along this path. And I just love the look that they provide here. And right now, I can show you our crabapple tree, which is not in full bloom anymore, but it's about half bloom. Probably 2 days ago, it was so smothered in these blooms, it was absolutely crazy, and it smells amazing. This is a fruitless crabapple, but it smells great, the blooms are beautiful, and it has been very disease-free for me. And I would say it's about 6 years old probably, maybe 7 at the most. And the garden bed's looking good. Our planters are starting to fill out and we're starting to see some new buds on some of the plants in them. I've actually kind of straightened out these 2 planters because they were leaning a little bit. So that's good, and we'll get those planted up very soon, hopefully. I'm gonna have to deadhead the daffodils that are in this garden bed though, because they have just started to go over with the warmer weather. But our weeping crabapple over here, this is the Louisa crabapple. All of the blooms opened up a few days ago and they are absolutely beautiful. I love the way that they looked in the bud stage. I love the way that they look in the flower stage, and they absolutely smell wonderful also. So this has been a fragrance corner for the last week. Now here we have some peonies that are budding up. So that's going to be fun to see those. We have, like, I think a Festiva Maxima and a Carl Rosenfeld. And in this garden bed, something that started blooming is the black scallop ajuga. And that's really exciting to me because last year I did not get much of a bloom on it because it was still fairly new, but now it has, you know, gotten large enough and spread enough across the ground where you can actually see the blooms on it, and they really are just opening. So hopefully there'll be even more next week when we do a tour. I was thinking that the Viburnum bushes would have opened up their blooms by now, but I am definitely wrong. They are still coming. You can see all of the buds on these as well. I have yet to see, well, maybe there are some buds that are starting to come on this elderberry. Oh, yep, there's one right there. Let's take a look. You see that? That is a bud down in there. So that will bloom a beautiful pink color while the Viburnums bloom a beautiful white. So hopefully they'll bloom together again this year because that was absolutely beautiful last year. So now we'll take a look at the sunbed in the front garden. And it is starting to show many more signs of life. The barberries are very lush at this point. Our bobo hydrangeas are leafing out. The dianthus is starting to become much taller, but this is probably an area where I will need to put some additional dianthus from the ones that I purchased recently. You can see all of the blooms are completely done now on the weeping cherry tree. And we have some sedum that is coming up in the front and some of the Japanese painted ferns that are coming up beneath it. And lots of golden tiara hostas along this side. That wabi-sabi viburnum is still getting nice full green foliage on it, and you'll see all of my purple sensation alliums have some amazing buds sticking up above the foliage now. So these are going to be popping open probably in the next few days, if not some of them starting maybe even tomorrow. And we have seen some of the Allium carataviense started to open up. So this is what they look like when they start to open. Isn't that beautiful? And again, we have them all along the border over here. And then they sit at the base of this oak leaf hydrangea. This is the jet stream hydrangea. Very pretty. And I did notice that we are starting to get a bud on at least one of my irises here, this one right here, which is His Royal Highness, which should be a dark purple. And we planted those last fall. And then we have some up front, but I haven't seen any buds on these yet. So we'll keep an eye out. Those get a little bit more shade because they're on the other side of the boxwoods. So we'll just have to watch them because they may be a little bit further behind than those were. So in the porch area, like I said, I really want to plant some of the impatiens, so hopefully we'll do that together soon. We do have the Japanese painted ferns that have come up here. This one's the crested surf fern, and I have a small one up top and a larger one below. And then I took some of those variegated hostas out of the garden and planted them into the pots, as well as this plain green one with the fern. So I think once we get some color in there with those impatiens, along with this window box, that things will really start to look a little more cheery. We have the variegated sedum here, the azaleas blooming, and it's going really well with that lamium that's back behind it. We have the maidenhair fern that is opening up. We have phlox coming up. You can see the pink sparkler spirea is really leafed out now in a gorgeous green color. And all of these hostas are really starting to push up. This is definitely deep shade on the north side of the house. And so this is where I grow only things that grow in the shade, because in addition to being on the north side of the house, we also are under this Japanese maple, which is quite large now and provides even more shade. There's some gorgeous bleeding hearts in this area. They're so pretty to look at. If I turn this way, you can see them a little better maybe. And another maidenhair fern. I think it is probably my favorite fern for the form and the shape of it. It just looks so delicate, but yet it is such a tough plant. Then we have those Sir Winston Churchill daffodils down here at this end of the garden, which are a more late blooming daffodil, but that also have a wonderful scent to them. Now you can see the blue shadow fothergilla up here is a little bit ahead of the Mount Airy fothergilla because it is starting to bloom. Already has its bottle brushes starting to open on it, and isn't that pretty? Now we are on the west side of the house, and this is where we have really just started trying to make something of it last year as we got more plant material. We have a gorgeous dark horse weigela here. And you can see that we're finally getting some growth on the low growth sumacs here. So the leaves are starting to come in, and you can see that beautiful foliage on them. Now again, on this side of the house, we have that opening day viburnum, and this one is not as old as the other one. We just planted this one last fall, but it really likes this location, obviously, because it also has buds on it, so that's pretty exciting. And we have some irises here, and then of course our brick garden here, we have some lobelia that is starting to put out some blue blooms. And I do think the rosemary is looking pretty good. The ranunculus continue to push out their foliage. No sign of blooms yet, I don't think. I really haven't seen any buds. But I think it's all looking really pretty back here, especially when I look at, you know, this area with the hostas beginning to come up and really fill in. And then just over to the left, the matching limey green foliage of the spirea over here. I thought it would be open by this week, but it is not. Here's a little bumble for you guys to see. Say hello, bumblebee, on a pulmonaria. But you can see it's really close to blooming, all of these buds all over it, and mosquitoes too. How are your gardens doing right now? Do you guys have lots of mosquitoes? Because they're everywhere. Last year we were almost mosquito free. I felt like we got such a break. It was wonderful. But this year not so much. So anyhow, I hope you really enjoyed this tour today. I enjoyed taking you around. I sure am loving all of the growth in the garden right now. And there's so much more to look forward to with this gardening season. Thanks again for joining me, and we'll see you next time.